Good afternoon and welcome to the July 27th Good River White Salmon Bridge Authority meeting. We'll go roll call. I see Grant Paulson here in the room, Arthur Babbitts, Mike Fox. Do we have any Oregon Good River commissioners online?
Yeah, I may have to step out for an emergency phone call. So is there someone backing me up?
I don't see anyone yet.
But yes.
And then from Klickitat County, you have myself here in the room, Jacob Anderson, I see online. And I think that's it for right now. Mark Fleming and Ben Berger both said they would not be able to make it today. So we do have a quorum, so we'll continue to move forward.
Step out. You still have a quorum.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Are there any modifications or additions to the agenda? Proceed with the agenda presented. Approval of meeting minutes from the July 13th meeting. Are there any comments?
I would move to adopt the minutes.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Or is there any discussion? Meeting minutes, or I guess we could vote on it. I think they're adopted as presented.
Objections.
Are there any objections to them being adopted as presented? Hearing none, we'll make that so. What comment? 3 minutes per person, 30 minutes total. We'll start here in the room. We have a few visitors. Any comments to make? No?
Commissioner Thomas just joined. Catherine.
She's on.
Okay. All right. Great. Welcome, Catherine.
Hey, Catherine, I may have to step out for a phone call. So if I do, you're voting.
Are there any public comments online? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on. Grant, do you have anything to add?
No, we can continue. Go ahead.
Okay. I do not. So that should take us right into Mike, your Shannon's report.
Here, we did get to an agreement on the STIP with ODOT, so that was one step forward. It's fully programmed now, so we'll continue that. We had our meeting today with OPRD and MPS, so more to follow on that meeting. There's going to be another follow-up meeting. We're going to send them some additional information, and they're going to take a look at it, and then we're going to follow up with a meeting with them. More to come on that topic. Some key dates that are coming up. We will be getting an appraisal at the end of the week for the co-property. We have a in-person coordination meeting with FHWA and ODOT July 30th. We have a CSRA, the cost schedule risk analysis with FHWA is August 4th through the 6th. And then we also have a September 30th is a anticipated for the bridge investment program. No guarantee on that date, but that is the current belief. It'll be at the end of the fiscal year, which is the end of September. So
have we gotten any updates on that, or that's the same we've been assuming?
Same we've been assuming for months. Not a word coming out.
So it was 2 weeks or 4 weeks ago, you'd said something about before the November elections, and I noticed that's dropped off the last couple of weeks. Okay.
I'm going with
nothing to back that
right now. Well, there's nothing really to back up September either, but
September 31st to maybe the 32nd.
Yes.
September 30th is the end of the fiscal year.
Unless there's other questions, I'll keep that short. We've got the budget review later. So
What?
Not budget, the progress review later. Sorry.
Okay. And no legal report. Dan, would you like to give a government relations report?
Yes. I'll give you the VIP award non-answer, but from the government. No new. Spoke with our lobbyist summit this morning, had a meeting with Senator Cantwell's new staffer, new staffer who's working for her on the Commons Committee, replacing Michael Davison, who the project has met with a number of times. So we had a short Zoom meeting with those folks this morning and no news from them either. Late summer is still what we understand. We heard that directly from Administrator Master from Federal Highway. So we're taking that to mean late August to late September. And Summit is coordinating all of our final argument touches from Congress to DOT and Federal Highways according to that. Our goal is to have all that work completed by mid-August. So that was part of what the meeting with Senator Campbell's team was this morning. Not much to mention on the state front. We're meeting with Brad Boswell, our Washington lobbyist, next week to talk about the upcoming Washington long legislative session and what our stance is up in Olympia, which will probably be not much. We have our full state match from Washington State, and we'll probably have minimal engagement up there this time around.
All right, thank you.
It'll be out of a couple of minutes.
So partner updates. I don't see anybody on there. We got the SIP update. We know that's moving through there. So we'll just keep moving on and we can come back to that if we need to. Consent agenda of a collection of invoices. I assume everybody is taking a look at.
We approve the invoices as stated. The Engineering Construction Committee did take a look at the big one, HRWSBA, and we have no issues.
Second the motion, same.
Motion has been proposed and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Right through this. Committee reports. Like we'll start with you, Mike.
Yeah, well, I'll start it off and jump in. We, as I said earlier, we looked at the invoice for HNTB. We didn't have any real issues there. We did get an update of where we were on design and some of the issues there. One was the pile cap beam. There's a lot of rebar in that pile cap. Very, very heavy rebar. So we're looking at an option of post-tensioning to get rid of a lot of rebar. Looks like that's probably going to occur. There's an action right now for Kiewit to take a look at what the aesthetics would look like with some end caps or some kind. We also looked at some options, I guess, for some kind of a indention at the bottom of the center span of that particular cap. Coming up with some options there to give it a little prettier view. Went through the report, the Kiewit report that you're going to see here in a few minutes. So we understand what we're going to see. That was kind of the high points of the meeting. Do you have any other input?
I think the only other, we spent a fair amount of time going through permitting and those are moving as well as we could expect. And we do know that the 408 permissions, as we suspected, would be kind of a slow point. So, and that seems to be.
There is one good piece of news in permitting wise, that the one permit that was holding us up for Bent 11 to do the soil sampling and we got that on Friday.
Yep.
So we
It's right on schedule.
Yeah. So they're scheduling that work right now to
Right.
get the driller out. Looks like the mid-August.
Okay,
Around the 17th, 18th of August.
good deal.
Remember, that's for the public, that's where we're going to have to shut down the bridge to basically put a crane on it and lift some drilling equipment over the side of the bridge, get the equipment off the bridge and then reopen it. And the crane will work its way over to where it needs to do some drilling. And then a week later or so, they'll move it back over. We'll shut the bridge down again, lift it back up onto the bridge and
And that bridge closure's, it's not full day. It's 11:30 PM to 5:30 AM. So it'll be in that off hours and it'll just be during that period. So it should be back open in the mornings for daytime traffic.
we've got a question.
Do you have dates, specific dates scheduled yet, or is it premature?
Yeah, it's
It's the 17th, 18th and 19th. So it'll be 11:30 of August. So 11:30 at night on the 17th. And then through 5:30 on the 18th, and then the same thing on the 18th and 19th.
the port is putting out a notice to.
Yeah, and there'll be a notice coming out for reports. So. And then the pickup dates are still questionable on when they'll pick it back up. It kind of depends on how the drilling goes to when they'll pick it back up.
Okay.
And there'll be another similar closure for that same 6-hour window when they pick it up.
Rough time in between the two, drop off and pick up?
A couple weeks.
Couple weeks or so?
Yeah, at
Okay.
least. Yeah.
Okay, good. I'll wait for the release from the port also. Thank you.
And the big story there is that's the final
Final
subsoil investigation that we need to do for the pier vents.
Correct.
Okay.
For those of us online, who is asking questions about the date? Sorry. Oh, I see them.
Dan.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. I didn't have anything to add, Mike. Did you get through everything? And then we can save the rest of that for Sean's report. Once communications. So that gets us down to new business.
All right, so the first one is we are up for our annual renewal for the PNWA, Port Pacific Northwest Waterways Association. So I was gonna see if Catherine maybe had some comments or would like to weigh in, kind of hear the value. Maybe Eric, you kind of saw some of the value of that and whether or not this is something that the authority should continue.
Thank you. So I had the pleasure of going to the PNWA meeting. Is Commissioner Berger online?
He was not able to make it today.
Understood. And so I had 3 points kind of justifying why I think this is an easy consideration to continue moving forward in support of being a member of PNWA. Just from my short experience there, we were able to get all the wheat growers from Idaho, Oregon, and Washington to co-sign a letter in support of our bridge to help kind of talk about the stakeholder support underneath the bridge as well as going over top the bridge. And they backed that up pretty quickly. We got that coordinated. At the taste of the PNWA meeting, which is a members only meeting, that's done with a coordination of Congress and Senate, and everyone comes. I do know for a fact that we were able to speak with representatives, like delegates, staff that we were not able to kind of get in with and hear more about what points they think we should focus on when speaking to certain staff. And I think that was an invaluable piece of information. And then the other thing that I found the most interesting, due to our White House meetings, we were not able to go to both days of speaking to, both the senators and the Congress people. So we were there all day for the Congress people. It was great to be part of that opportunity and then to ask a question. We actually had other people who used their time to ask questions about our bridge because they heard our story and were very supportive. And so I would say that for the fee, remind me again, Mr. Shannon, what the actual fee is for an entire year of membership.
2,500.
I mean, $2,500. I think that is an easy yes for us because the added value that we get is more people are talking about our bridge outside of the Hood River White Salmon communities, and that allows us to get more of a community awareness. And we're also able to support others in the community so that we can, we add value and we get value. So I am firm believer in continuing our membership as the Hood River Whitehaven Bridge Authority. I think it will only add value. Dan, Mar, did you want anything to add, or did I cover the points that you thought we should cover?
I think you did a great job. Thank you.
Okay.
So I'll chime in here. I had the opportunity to go to their yearly conference last year in Vancouver, and was given the opportunity, one, to present so that they were aware of the bridge and some of the details and what we were doing. And I got a lot of feedback on that. And then just the ability to meet a number of the other small government organizations that are trying to do work in the river and in the harbors, and some of the challenges that they've run into or successes that they've had. And I think that just in terms of meeting a group of people that are trying to do similar things to us, I think it's a really easy sell for me as well. So I would strongly advocate for continuing that relationship.
So one clarification, I'm in support of it as well. This is considered non-rate, so we don't charge it off.
I believe that is correct.
I still think it's worth it.
Yes. So, yeah, that would be my 2 cents.
Move that we go ahead and fund extension membership with Pacific Northwest Waterway Association for the $2,500.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion or questions? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Right. Thank you, everyone. So let's talk about the RAISE grant and Amendment 11.
Yeah, so this is for the RAISE grant, which is task 17 on our HNTB contract. When we got this grant, it was for 3.6 million. The total amount was for 2 primary deliverables. One was the development of an action plan. Because we did not have a regional action plan, we were not be able to go after an implementation grant. So we used this grant to establish that action plan that will allow not only us, but the communities to go after future implementation grants. And then the second deliverable was a partial funding. And the reason I say that is part of the funding is under the RAISE grant, and then the rest of the funding is under our other state and federal grants. And in doing that, we allocated that money across HNDB, Kiewit, and the local communities. And in order to utilize all of that, we set up the accounts for each one using those amounts. The local agencies did not use all of their money, so this is kind of a reallocation of budget to allow HNTB on our contract to be able to bill against that amount so that we can use the full 3.6 million RAISE grant. If we don't reallocate this, then we will not be able to bill against it, which means we would lose basically that funding. So
That's for the public. You may want to reference what the RAISE grant covers.
Yeah, so the RAISE grant is the bike and ped parts and portions of the development of a 60% plans for the overall project. It was for the bike and pedestrian components of it. So the bike lanes, the construction, the structure of the bike lanes, even all through the foundations, everything that would support those bike lanes was part of that scope of work.
And the scope of work for the local community is to make the link to the edge of the bridge.
On out. Yes. And what the effort was right now for them was in supporting the development of the action plan. And then that action plan fed comments on those approach ends. So it's just really, like I said, a reallocation to allow us, because we are at our, we've built up to our maximum contract. So without an adjustment to our contract, we can't bill more to the RAISE grant. So it's an ability for us to be able to bill against the RAISE grant because we don't have enough in our contract. So because of the way we set it up, we divided it up between Kiewit, HNTB, and locals to represent 3.6. So that's the reason for that.
And right now, we've got the RAISE grant is out It went out in draft form for comments. We received comments. You're incorporating those
Correct.
now to get to the final
Yes,
that will be issued.
in August.
And I know we have in the aesthetics group, we've been meeting with the Raise Grant team to make sure that what we're doing on the bridge is coordinated with what that says. And that's what this work will fund, is continuing to fund that.
Continuing that and then finishing up, 60%, as well as finishing up any, administrative duties for billings and things like that, reimbursement requests through the grant funds.
But
So
the plan is ready to go out in August.
August, yeah, it's all complete and ready to go. So we'll see a final one out.
Catherine has her hand raised.
Thank you, Amy. And just a question, you mentioned that not all the community organizations built for their 100%. So did we do the work for them? Is that why HNTB is asking for the relocation, or is HNTB going over the budget and that's why you're asking for more money, or what's?
No, it's the amount we allocated. So when we started this, we just kind of estimated what each group would spend in their efforts for the action plan, and then a portion of the 60%. And they just did not use their full amount. So we've reached out to them numerous times to say, hey, get all your final billings in. Let's make sure. And they've done all of that. And then we let them know that, hey, we're going to pull this back in so that we don't lose this money. And they were fine with that. So that's what we're doing now, is pulling that money back in order to not, I'll say, not be able to bill it. So it's not a matter of going over budget. It's just a matter of a portion of our funding. So it's just we're able to allocate more of our portion to that and resolve some of these additional comments and things that we did in finalizing the action plan.
So did HNTB not appropriately understand this? There's a pot of money that was divided three ways: Kiewit, the community, and HNTB. And then the
Correct.
scope of work is supposed to be done in August. And so what I'm hearing is some of the people did not use all their money, so maybe they didn't get their full scope done, so HNTB had to take over some of their scope to complete, or are we not, or is the new money request for allocation that's now being directed to HNTB covering funding that's, I'm assuming it's all raise grant appropriate, but
Yes, it's funding money that would then be allocated to another fund source. So the raise grant covered two things. Covered developing the action plan, and then a portion of developing the 60% plans related to bike ped. So it covered a portion of HNTB's expenses. It covered a portion of Kiewit's expenses. So Kiewit's working on maximizing theirs. We're maximizing ours. This just gives us access to bill against the raise grant instead of billing against a Washington grant or an Oregon grant or some other federal grant. It just allows us to bill against and utilize the full raise grant amount. Because if you look at the total contract amounts between the three, so between Kiewit, HNTB, and the locals, it added up to 3.6. So in order for either us or Kiewit to bill more of our budget against that number, we either you could do the same thing to Kiewit. You could move the money to Kiewit's contract, and then they could bill against it. Either one would work. It's just the ability. It's not new scope. It's just the ability to bill against it so that we can utilize the full grant. Because our current contract amounts were not. They added up to 3.6 between the three, but in order to get them to add up to 3.6 now, we need to move some money over to one of the other two entities so that they can bill against it. So both us and Kiewit are going over our raise grant portion because it only was a portion of the grant, and we just allocated an estimate of how much we would each spend in order to utilize the full grant. Like I said, the end deliverable is 60%, but it's covered by multiple funding sources. Sorry, I'm trying to make that clear, but you're not looking at me like I'm making it clear.
So I'm glad Commissioner Bass is back in the room now, so I will no longer be voting for the minutes. But my question, I guess, is HNTB is not asking for more money. HNTB is asking for money to, and now he's gone, now he's back. H&B is asking for money that would have otherwise been billed to a Washington or a broader scoped funding source, because the raise grant is pretty strictly scoped to be billed against, correct? So this is allowing it's allowing billing for another grant to potentially be used for something else because the raise grant was so strictly scoped. Is that a correct?
No, that's still not 100% correct. So in the development
Okay.
of the raise grant did not fully cover everything that needed to be done related to bike ped to develop a 60% set of plans.
Got it.
Part of the development of the 60% plans and the bike ped portions was covered by Oregon Washington grants and the raise grant. This is just using some more of the raise grant to allow that charges because it wasn't used by the locals. So it's allowing us to fully utilize the raise grant funds that were available to the project.
No, I get that. I just want to make sure that I can understand because a for-profit entity is asking for funding to be put into their bucket because the community did not use their full amount. And so I just want to make sure that I understand correctly because when,
So the
social media
communities
comes out and says,
The communities were fully reimbursed for all of the scope that they did and what they asked to be reimbursed for. And they have said, hey, we're not going to use all of these funds. So we are putting them basically back in the bucket so that we don't lose them.
And we're using those to coordinate the 60% plans
With
with
locals.
the developing plans for, I know White Salmon, we talked about in depth, the Bluff Trail and how that impacts and how that ties into the end of the bridge.
Correct.
I have to assume we'll have a discussion on the Oregon side as
Correct.
well.
Mm-hmm.
And making sure that the 60% documents reflect coordination with what we think is going to happen. So
how much money are we talking about?
It's about 170,000, I think is what it is. We've increased ours more than that just to make sure if Kiewit doesn't spend all theirs or something, we don't have to come back. It's like I said, it just gives you budget authority to bill out the grant money. So once we hit the 3.6, then the raise grant will close and any additional billings related to bike ped will get billed to either the Washington or Oregon grant. So the scope doesn't change in the work, it's just where it's getting billed.
No,
And the way-
I understand.
and
Yeah,
the way-
I understand. I just
Right.
think the easier thing is when you're talking about funding, because somebody has to pay the bills, and if it's a very strict, like the raise grant has to be used this way. And so my question was more if we can now bill for a stricter grant, that's easier because in the long run, having more availability to Oregon Washington Fund for other things makes sense. So thank you for explaining.
Yeah, you're right in what you just said. It will allow us to use the Washington and Oregon money, which has more flexibility than the raise grant. Yes.
file that away for next time.
Yeah. All right. I see how you were saying it now. Yes.
Sorry, did we have a motion on this or?
Yes. Move to approve Amendment 11 for the HNTB raise grant contract amendment.
11.
11.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second.
I'm gonna have to sit this one out because I didn't hear the discussion, so the Catherine understands it well enough.
Is there any further discussion?
Sorry, for
Those in
clarity,
favor?
I am voting then, yes. Commissioner
Correct.
Babbitts?
Yes.
Great, understood. Thank you.
I didn't catch it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Good discussion. Puts us on to informational items. Cost schedule risk.
Nothing more than just awareness. We're working through that process, updating the risks on the project. The estimate is approaching being complete. It'll be complete at the end of this week. That'll be incorporated into the cost schedule risk analysis. And then when we're completed with this process, we'll have an updated full estimate for the project.
All right.
This is,
Agreements.
yeah, this is just something to put on your radar. Staff is working on developing some maintenance agreement, ideas on how we could do the maintenance, of a number of different things: ponds, bridges, tolling, roadways, grass, trees, garbage,
Plowing.
all the things that need to be done. So we will be bringing back to the different committees and then eventually back to the board on how they want to approach maintenance. So we're going to put some maps together and some suggestions on what we think would make the most sense for future maintenance and future ownership as well. So it's just something to put on your radar that'll be coming back for additional discussion and sometime between now and 100.
Ready for operations.
Just getting us ready for operations when the bridge opens and everybody then knows who they're controlled. And the reason it's important now is that if someone is going to own the maintenance, they may want to have a discussion about what they are maintaining, and may have a preference one way or the other, depending on their current maintenance systems or equipment or whatever that might be. So that's why we're having that now.
So I think this one is important for us to maybe come to some sort of principles that guide what we're trying to do. Because with the bridge 5 or 6 years in the future, it's really hard for a lot of municipalities to, sure, I can do that. But how we
The further in the future it is, the easier it is to say yes.
but how we design things now is also going to affect how receptive or reluctant those entities may be. And I think that was the first part that I kept telling Mike, we're too early for that. Nobody wants to, but understanding that what plants we put in or what light, like the one came up on the lighting fixtures, and ODOT doesn't like the lighting fixtures we have because they just use this brown box thing that they want to do everywhere because that's what they stock. And so how do you try to be receptive to that and then also acknowledge when, no, we need to do what we're doing because there's a specific reason for it. So I think that's why this is kind of coming to a head.
And some of it will also fall on, shared use pond, for example. There will be a portion of that pond that the authority will be participating in the financial maintenance of it. You won't be doing the actual maintenance, but you will have some kind of a financial responsibility. Yeah, theoretically. So it's also going to be how you use your funds in the future as well.
But I think where it comes into play is, do we want to have, what size of an organization do we want to commit to for the long term?
Exactly. And do you want to
lean and mean and sub everything out, or do we want to get in the bridge maintenance business?
Yeah.
For one bridge.
How big a staff do you want to have? How much equipment? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that gets us to June financial reports.
I don't have too much to add. I did want to point out that this is through June 30th, which is the end of the fiscal year. So these numbers will change a bit as we go through and do reconciliations. We hold the month open a little longer at the end of the fiscal year so that we collect everything that needs to be recorded in the proper fiscal year. So just basically a heads up that these numbers will change a little bit when you get the annual financial report. It'll probably be slightly different than what's being shown on here. And again, that's simply because we're making sure that things get into the correct fiscal year when we're coding them. I did break out and I know Mark Flaming at least isn't there and I haven't seen him online. He did request and I felt like it was really a good addition to the financial statements to start showing what I'm calling the unrestricted versus the restricted. And technically the unrestricted is like the building of the bridge. And so that's the grants that come in. Even though the grants are restricted, when you look at it from the point of view of the bridge authority, they're unrestricted because that is your purpose, is to build the bridge. The restricted is the money that comes over from the port because there's an IGA that controls the use of those funds. And so he kind of wanted that separated out so that there was some information clearly available about the amount of money that was in the LGIP and the amount of money that has been borrowed so far in order to pay invoices. So on the balance sheet, it shows the amount of money in the LGIP, but it also shows that $1.6 million has been transferred into the bank account to help cover invoices at this point. So you are now to the point where you are using some of the LGIP money to cover invoices for cash flow purposes. And the grants are getting reimbursed pretty quickly. WashDOT is still lagging a little bit. ODOT is down to a week or less in getting us reimbursed. So the money's coming through pretty quickly, but we have big invoices going through now as we were anticipating. So we are using that. And that does, when we use that $1.6 million for cash flow purposes, it means that we are not earning interest on it. So that's the thing to be aware of with this action that we're taking now.
For the public's edification, we were talking about restricted and unrestricted, and LGIP. For example, there's the reserve accounts that we have to fund the new bridge. She's referring to the LGIP accounts. That's, I believe, what you're referring to is the restricted funds, the debt reserve funds.
Yes.
Since we have reports in the room to provide additional details about what you mean when you're referring to restricted and unrestricted funds would be helpful, Debbie.
Those are reimbursable funds too.
Yeah.
Yes. So the restricted is the money that is being set aside for the reserve fund for when you go out for the TIFIA loan. And so, or whatever financing you go for. We've always said TIFIA, but it doesn't have to be TIFIA, but chances are it will be. And so it's the reserve that will be needed when you go out for borrowing on this project.
And those are all reimbursable funds, so we'll get them back.
Yes.
As we get reimbursed.
That is correct. That is not a permanent $1.6 million transfer. And it can go up and down during the month, depending upon the cash flow needs.
I think it's important that we all keep in front of us as we go into construction. That number is going to get much bigger really quick, and we'll go out of business if we can't get relief on paying an invoice.
Yep, and we're working on that. So we've got, that's actually a request that's in on our infra grant. It's something that'll be put in with our BIP grants. And then we do have the option to increase our cash flow through the use of the bond funds and make that cash availability to the project to use it. So
but if we use bonds, we're paying for it.
Yep.
So we got to be really careful.
Yeah. But we are working plans. As you know, we're working options to secure that cash flow.
So is there anything else we want to talk about at that? Because I think Sean's explanation is going to go into some of where some of the money comes and goes, is coming in and comes from and goes to, and where it's not coming in right now quickly enough. And
the only upcoming action item I have that I wanted to make sure everybody caught is a new one. That's the PFM, the comparison, which goes along with what we were just talking about of TIFIA versus bonds. So they're looking at doing that August 24th. That's still a confirmed date.
Yes, that is still the plan.
Just if, as many of the commissioners.
that's the TIFIA bond.
Yeah, so that'll be a good discussion for the commissioners to hear about what their options are. TIFIA versus bond.
And I believe PFM is prepared to talk at least a little bit in generalities about the cost, as Commissioner Fox and Mike Shannon were acknowledging, if we use bond money or TIFIA money for cash flow purposes, that's our most expensive option. And so they can talk about that a little bit as well.
So the other good news, the good news here is, what we have in that TIFIA kitty that we received through the increased tolls in 23 is now $10.3 million. Our target's been somewhere around 15, if I remember right. So we're on our way, and we hit a milestone over $10 million. Yeah.
But none of that's a surprise, though.
No, but per plan, but it's still a pretty major milestone hitting 10.
So this TIFIA versus bond discussion that's going to happen later in August. I've just been viewing this as, from my perspective, as someone's going to tell me the answer. Is that the wrong way to think about it?
Debbie,
Well, if I can jump in here, I wouldn't say that there's an answer right now. I think what we want to talk about, and in a nutshell, and again, PFM is way more knowledgeable about this than I am, but in a nutshell, if you're just looking just at straight borrowing, TIFIA is cheaper than bonds. But when you're looking at time frame, that is where you're going to have to weigh the difference in the interest costs with the cost that comes from delaying the project. If waiting for TIFIA delays the project, that costs us money. And it might be worth it to pay a higher interest rate on straight old regular bonds than to go with TIFIA. But TIFIA is a cheaper interest rate.
They're not going to be able to tell us in August whether or not there's a potential for delay. They're just going to say there might be.
Right.
I think by then they should be able to give us timelines too. You know, how long is it going to take to do this versus that? And if we're successful getting the bid in September, then we're going to have to pull the trigger pretty quick to be ready to go into the.
I just don't, I think it's going to be a sufficiently vague answer that we're going to have to take that as, I don't know.
But it'll be a more informed, I don't know.
There's a little better description of the two options.
This is going to be disturbing because we're going to have to be making a break, a go, no go break or proceed decision without adequate information.
I don't think we're making a decision then. We're just understanding the options.
No, not in the August meeting, but
Right.
I am anticipating
It may come.
getting inadequate information from that meeting.
Commissioner, this is Mark Greeno. I think we will, the documentation will be somewhat similar and we might just proceed down parallel tracks. And that way, if TIFIA gets hung up, which they may well, then we would also want to have in our back pocket the ability to go to the bond market. So we would have we would have and PFM is going to do the work on this, and I'll do some of the work, but we would have kind of in our back pocket an RFP for underwriting firms and an offering document that describes your agency and a draft for rating agency presentations, which we've already put together for Fitch. And so, the idea would be that if TIFIA really bogs down, then depending on how you felt, we could turn to the bond market and put together a transaction in relatively short order.
That's really helpful. That makes me feel better.
Contingency.
So,
All right. Anything else, Mike?
Gary wants to go.
Oh. Gary.
I wanted to make sure that everybody, knew that this is not about making a decision. This is about knowing that you have options. I think that one of the things that came up in the Finance and Funding Committee was that we have been talking almost exclusively about financing through TIFIA. And we had talked about some of the potential pitfalls. TIFIA is an onerous process. It's very bureaucratic and very process driven, and it takes a lot of time. And it's just a matter of you knowing and feeling comfortable that you have options. And yes, the costs may be different, although depending on market conditions, that difference can be pretty small. And if you gain the ability to do your financing quickly, then you may want to exercise that. And I think one of the things you're going to discover is the process is very similar between the two. You still have to go through the credit rating agencies, et cetera. And so we're going to be doing those, as Mark Greeno pointed out, in parallel, but you will not have to make a decision for quite some time. It's just to make you aware of the options that you do have.
Thank you, Carrie. Amy, did you turn did you click the OK so I can see the hands?
I don't know if I agree that we've got, a lot of time yet for the decision, because if we're being in the water in October 27 and we get the bid in September, the time from September to next October is not that long. We're going to be incredibly busy, and we're going to have to be making decisions very quickly.
And what we've been told is TIFIA is a 12-month process. I think the question in my mind is more how Federal Highways is going to review are being completely funded and how far we have to be along on the TIFIA or the bond path for them to say, yeah, you're good.
We'll give you
because they've been silent on that so far. I know we've asked, but they haven't been forthcoming.
We've got some of those discussions with them on the 30th. Yeah, to pursue. So there are some options that are available. Yeah, we'll see where they are with being able to take them.
It's just bizarre to me because we're not the first jurisdiction without just this big pocket of cash to pay for things, to go through this process. So how can they not have answers?
You're unique in a way that you are a direct recipient. Up till the grants allowed direct recipients, that changed the rules.
Right.
And it creates some new challenges because we're not directly overseen by one of the state agencies.
I'd be happy to give it to ODOT.
Yes, agree.
Let him build the bridge.
So
No,
I think. Did you raise it again?
If I could,
Okay.
yeah, I just wanted to mention that in addition to the presentation from PFM on possible financing options, you are also scheduled at that meeting to receive a report from CDM Smith on the final draft of the investment grade traffic and revenue study. And so that will be interesting to you all. It's the projection of your traffic and revenue for the next 30 years. And so they'll be prepared to answer questions about that as well.
With that, it would be helpful, at least for me. Didn't we do a preliminary early traffic study?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to know significant differences between the two.
I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but I think what you're going to find is that there have not been significant differences. The difference between the early draft that our first credit rating, our indicative credit rating was based on, and this one is that this one now includes 2025, 2024 and 2025 traffic numbers, which the previous traffic and revenue study was based on up to 22. So you've got updated traffic numbers. 24 was not a particularly good year in terms of traffic and revenue. 25, it turns out, actually was a good year. So there was a little offsetting that went on there. And then there have also been some updated economic forecasts for the Columbia River Gorge area that they'll be able to talk to. But I think the bottom line is going to be that you're in good shape to borrow the amount of money that we've contemplated borrowing all along. And I don't want to say any more than that because I'm not allowed to give you financial advice.
Catherine, would you like
Harry.
to add?
Yep, I'm just wondering, just being on the port that owns the current bridge, there has been a decrease in overall traffic as of late. And Debbie, maybe you can speak more to that. And that doesn't affect, what we're expecting. So was that accounted for? Because as of late, as of very sharply lately, it's a pretty large drop, correct, Debbie, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's a pretty good drop. CDM Smith is well aware of it. I've been working with them on that. So they definitely have all the latest information. And I believe as they project things out, they anticipate that there's going to be times in the future where that will be the case. I mean, we have ups and downs with, the price of gas. And I mean, this is not the first time that this has happened. It's happened before, and it will most likely happen again in the future.
And also, I mean, I personally canceled multiple trips across the bridge because knowing that there might be construction, knowing that the state of the bridge was such that I couldn't depend on getting to my meeting or coming back. So I'm sure there's a lot of people simply not taking trips because it's not worth the trouble.
Yeah. So we'll look forward to that in late August. And the last thing we have today is kind of a progress update, and I'll just kind of introduce this a little bit. John and Hewitt and ourselves have been working for the last several months, even more than several, since 1B started to actually track and forecast our expenditures as well as our progress, and try to predict where we're going to be at the end of this phase and going forward. The purpose of that is to know where we are, and if we are getting savings, which we think we are, how can we redirect those savings now to preclude cost or risk in the future? And Sean has been working on pulling all this together, and he's got it distilled down to a pretty good financial report, and he does a really good job of kind of peeling away all the mumbo jumbo and saying, this is what's important and this is what's important. So Sean, with that, if you could take us through your wizardry.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Let me place on my screen here. Yeah, so this progress report is as of June, so it's through the end of June. And the executive summary is what's included in the meeting agenda for today. So I'm going to go through some key items in the executive summary here. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to jump in and ask rather than waiting until the very end. So the first thing that I want to call out is the schedule milestones for the project progress. So the 60% design package submittal, the last of that submittal is projected to come in August 12th, which is one day earlier than it was in the May report. And the release for construction design package submittal is scheduled to be March 20th, 2027, which is 3 days earlier than it was in the May. So both of those submittals are trending in the right direction. They're gaining time. And then the phase 1B completion is scheduled to happen in September 2027. So the primary activities between the release for construction design package and the end of phase 1B is getting all the permits wrapped up and negotiating the phase 2 construction contract.
And that 60% submittal is actually the discussion we had earlier about doing the drilling for the Bent 11, and that's kind of the culmination of that.
Yep. So the last little bit of the 60%. So the majority of the 60% design package submittal came in early June, and we've reviewed that and sent back comments. The last part is the foundation and substructure design, which is going to happen in August.
That days behind baseline, the driver for that was the delay in getting the borings, the permits for the borings in order to advance that design. So. Yeah, and the furloughs.
The thing to watch is the second line, which is release for construction. In other words, design is done.
Yep.
Calculations are complete, drawings are stamped. And right now we're showing he would be finished March the 20th.
That's right.
Of 27, which is pretty much right on schedule. That's a really, really key milestone date for us. Now, the third one is getting the rest of the permits that allows us to go into construction, but also a big one is to negotiate a phase 2 contract with Kiewit. But I can't understate the importance of that second line.
Yep.
And that's critical path towards completion of a bridge where the first line is not.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
And provide funding.
Yep. Thank you. The next thing that I want to talk about is the earned value management metrics. This is just a key sort of summary of our earned value, and it's split into 6 major cost categories, we'll call it. The first one, PDB contractor, that's Kiewit's contract.
Can you blow that up some more? Yeah.
Okay, so the first row is PDB contractor, that's Kiewit. Second is owner's representative, that's HNTB. Authority and governance is the third, then funding and finance. Then fifth is right of way, and the last is environmental mitigation costs. So for the month of June, Kiewit earned $2.26 million worth of progress on actual cost of $1.8 million. So they were performing work under budget. That was against the plan.
Can you
Does
say
earned make sense to everybody?
Sort of.
Yeah.
You want to give just a quick definition of earned?
Sure, yeah. So when the project starts, we schedule out all the tasks that it's going to take from basically the very beginning until we're done. And we assign values to each of those tasks so that as we complete them, regardless of how much it actually costs, we can say, all right, we did this, we did the geotech investigation. So that earned us $1.8 million. So as soon as you complete these tasks, you get to claim that you've earned that value. So the earned value plan adds up to the contract value that we started with. So for Kiewit specifically in June, they had planned to do $2.7 million worth of work. They had actually earned $2.26 million, but on an actual cost of 1.8. So while they're doing things below budget, we're still, for the month of June anyway, we are doing it slower than we planned on schedule.
So you're a little, for the month, Kiewit's a little bit behind the schedule by about $500,000.
Right.
But for the work that they're performing it for $400,000 less than what they had budgeted for.
Right.
Now, the challenge with monthly, you'll see over time, monthly bounces around. It's not a good, strong indicator of performance over a period of time. That's why you always look at the to date as well. And if you look at the to date, if you just move it over, it's a much different picture.
Yeah. So on the to date, Kiewit had planned to do about 20 million, and to date, they're just above $21 million on their earned against actual cost of just below 12.5 million. So they're doing things ahead of schedule and well below budget. The second row is HNTB. So we had planned to do just under $13 million worth of work. Our earned value is just below 10.5. So as far as HNTB's progress goes, we're behind schedule, but we've done it on actual cost of $10 million. So slightly under budget.
That reason on the HNTB being like that is we established our schedule prior to finding out about the permits being late. So that permitting delay impacted our earn because we ended up we had to pause for 6 months while we waited for the permitting to then do the work that we thought we were going to do earlier. So that's why you'll see our earned will never catch up because of that delay. So just so everybody's aware of why that's like that.
So these numbers, how happy should we be about them? Were they sandbagged originally, or were we actually getting things done cheaper than?
Well, if you remember
expected?
The first several months of reporting from Kiewit, if you would have looked at those numbers and yeah, the plan number was different. The earned value was much less. So if you remember, we talked about Kiewit was following their late curve on the schedule, which basically says they're behind plan by a lot. And as we got closer to the 60%, we in the E&C committee felt that there was something wrong with that picture. And there was a lot of discussion with Kiewit on the schedule. And there was a number of corrections made. And we're pretty well convinced that these are the right numbers. So what this shows us is that Kiewit right now is underrunning, earned to date is 21 million. And it took them 12 million to get there, so it's $9 million underrun. Okay, now, if you take a look at this, and are you gonna show us okay, so I won't go there. But that says right now, if you believe the numbers, and they're gonna underrun by $9 million of funding, we need to go find some other work that we could add to the pot and get done and reduce the risk of that Kiewit's gonna have in figuring out a lump sum price for phase two. So it's good money to spend now if we can afford it. But reduces.
So I totally get that. But when I see an underrunning of the billing, basically there, I do wonder if the original schedule had been sandbagged, or if the reality is that they've just removed some risks that were priced into it, and it turned out that we lucked out on several risks in a row.
Yeah, I think so. It's the latter.
Realistically, it's probably some of both.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I'm not trying to rain on anyone's parade. I'm just trying to appreciate the flavor of it.
Yeah. But the good news is, with the system, it allows us to see it and allows us to make the decision to go start more work. So
Yeah, so in this earned value management, one of the key metrics is cost performance index, which is your earned divided by your actual. So being above 1 is the goal. You can see that Kiewit is nearly 1.7, HRTB is 1.05. And that'll come back around later when I talk about kind of our cash flow diagram. The next thing I want to talk about is that, right? So in our cash flow, this is for just phase 1B, and the risk of sounding like a broken record, because I've gone through this with the committee several times, but the red dash line is our available secured funding. It's funding that we can use for phase 1B on the project. And you can see that it changes over time. So in July of 2027, there's a big bump that takes us from around 80 million to just over 150 million. That's state funding that comes in, that's scheduled to come in July of 2027. The green line is our total project costs. So it's just the sum of all the orange bars, which is our actuals to date, plus the purple bars, which is our to-go plan. And there, you can see here that there is a bottleneck in July of 2027, right when that additional funding becomes available. And the project did some strategic scheduling of some of the non-critical path schedule items, particularly right-of-way and environmental mitigation stuff. So there is a large spike in August 2027 that allows us to keep our project costs, the green line, below the available funding. So the stuff that we pushed to the very last month, right-of-way stuff like 6F conversion, and then some temporary construction easements, and then also the environmental mitigation costs that we're anticipating. We did keep some of those right-of-way costs in March 2027, which will allow us to start early works construction activities. Some right-of-way, some temporary construction easements, and permanent property acquisitions that we need to get started.
And just for the public, scaling wise, the bars scale on the left axis and the lines scale on the right axis. That's how it sums up there. So it doesn't look too out of whack.
Well, in the March timeframe, that the bump there is our desire to be able to go pre-buy like the material for the trestles before we actually go into the water. So it's ready to go when we're ready to go.
And where is that on the graph?
That's in March 27.
Okay, thanks.
That's
that says March.
Yeah. That's ready for construction.
It looks like August to me, but that's March. Okay, they're over there. Got it. Okay. So what's the August date?
Plan or our goal is that you never want to exceed funding.
Yep.
That's a no-no. But you want to be up really close to it within, say, 2%.
Right.
If you're at 2% under funding, you're running a really tight program.
No, that makes sense now. I just couldn't read those captions.
So another thing that I want to call to your attention, the actuals to date are the orange, and then like I said, the purple are the to-go plan, and that plan is developed by project managers, Mike at HNTB, James at Hewitt, just kind of looking at where the project is currently and what is it going to take to get across the finish line, and then programming out their own budgets. And so that's what the green line does. And you can see it comes in just below $85 million. So the green line is more than just Hewitt and HNTB. There's also, like we talked about, right of way, there's environmental, there's authority and governance, funding and finance. So that 85 million-ish is sort of like a grounds up estimate of what it's going to take to finish the project. As a reminder, the contract value was, I think, 86.8 million. So it's reduced from what we thought on day one. But what Mike Fox was suggesting before is that CPI, it's our to-date performance, can be used as a way to forecast what our final costs are going to be. So if Hewitt's at like a 1.7, it means that they're just going to crush their end, right? But their to-go plan, they're saying, is going to be about $8 or $9 million less than they thought on day one. If you use the CPI, their final cost is going to be about $20 million less than what they thought on day one. So this graph doesn't show it, but there are other graphs that we're using in our management that show potential, best case scenario, where are we going to end? And it, like I said, it's about $20 million below what we thought on day one. And comes back to the final recommendation that, hey, do we want to resequence some of the scheduling of this right of way? Does it add any value to pull up some of those acquisitions to be sooner? Or are there out of scope items currently, like a test pile program, that if we did now could mitigate risk in the construction phase, could help our cost negotiation in the construction phase? So it's kind of like what Mike Fox calls is like a Christmas wish list, right? We've got, as funding becomes available, we got this wish list, and what do we want to prioritize to add the most value to the project? Any questions about our cash flow?
So how many projects are at this stage with this good of news?
Not many. So the next thing that I want to talk about are what we are calling our trends. So they're anything that we identified that could impact the total cost of the project. And the way that we are measuring it for this executive summary is just if we add anything that would reduce our total cost, then we can put it in contingency. If there's anything that's going to increase our costs, we have to take it from contingency to fund it. So for the executive summary, that's all I'm reporting here. Is the blue line at the bottom is what we're currently forecasting as the overall contingency. And the orange is the potential. So if some of these trends, what we're calling them, materialize at the estimate that we've thought, that's what could be our contingency. It could be just below 154 million. So we went into this phase at like 120 million for our contingency. And if everything goes exactly how we think, it could be as high as 154 million.
And so I have two things. First, I can't read your x-axis. So those are by the month. Okay. And then your y-axis isn't starting at 0.
That's right.
Okay, so that can be really confusing to people.
Because of the scale of it, if I start at 0.
Yeah, the variance you're seeing is actually what's the percentage? You got 125 and 154, so like a 25% variance. So
yeah,
it looks like it's 12 times, but it's actually just 25%.
So if you step back away from this chart and you remember what our original estimate was, it was $1.12 billion.
Right.
In that $1.12 billion, there was an amount of contingency that was in there.
Yes.
And then we've had to use some of that contingency because we had to move the project 1 year.
Right.
Okay. So after we did that movement of the 1 year, we were left with I can't read it, 126 million?
Yep.
$126 million in the kitty.
Right.
For contingency. Now, because of what we've seen during design and what we've been able to squeeze down in design, we think that contingency could go to
Almost 154 million.
154 million. So we found another 30 to 40 million dollars.
Potentially.
That can be switched from planning to be spent on something to a contingency column. Is that, am I
Yes.
right?
Potentially.
Potentially, got it, yeah.
Yeah. As an example, big one. Remember when we designed this thing in phase 1A, each pier had 4 shafts. And at the 2 shafts adjacent to the channel, there was 6. So what we've done since then, we've reduced from 4 to 2.
Yep.
And 6 to 4.
Right.
Well, that's a huge amount of money. When you consider they're 160 feet deep and 9 foot in diameters and all the rebar and so on. So that has helped us create that big vertical curve there.
Yeah, no, I completely misunderstood. I see a jump in contingency. I thought you're telling us that we have more risk. You're saying we potentially have more money available to address risk.
We have more opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then here are the changes that influence the moves in the green and the orange lines in this month. There's a lot of content here, and then even more if we talk about row by row. So for the sake of time and the audience here, I don't think that we need to go into it, but it's included in the executive summary, and we've addressed the key item of the contingency moves for this month.
What is the 6F movement? I am confused as to.
So the 6F conversion is the property.
I know it is.
Okay.
Why did the number change?
So when we got the appraisal that came in, it came in higher than our base assumption. So we had to take money out of contingency to fund that.
Okay, I just was trying to understand what the sign was on that number. No, I thought that the number had gone up. I was wondering why it was going down, but you're telling me that going down means it went up.
Yes.
Correct.
I mean, we had to write from contingency.
No, I got it. You just have to point me in the right direction.
All right. And then finally is the grant reimbursements section. And for this, I'm going to pass the baton to my colleague, Andrew, who's on the call.
So this is our standard reporting for the month through June 31st. We have some federal grants and some state grants that we had submitted in the last month. As the list shown here, our Raise 10 grant has been reimbursed. We've had that back in our bank account. And as Debbie noted earlier in the call, our state grants have been processing pretty quickly. That Washington grant we already have back in, so 3.5 million is back in our account, and the Oregon lottery bond is also back in our account. We're still working on closing out the build grant with our federal partners, and then we're still working on that latest Raise grant as well.
So what's going on with the build grant? I mean, the thing's been hanging out now since May of 2025.
Yep. So we've uploaded through working with our federal partners at HRWSBA, they requested some additional billing rates to support some invoices that were back from the original first grants back in 2023, 2024. And so we had to do some reaching out to our sub-consultants and grab all of that data. We've uploaded all of that into our SharePoint site, which we share with our FHWA partners. And so they have all that information now. They're still reviewing it. So we'll let you know as soon as we hear back from them, any updates.
When was the last time we gave the information over? How long has it been?
The latest batch we gave was last week for those original invoices and those original billing rates.
We had to go back to subs, and even subs that weren't on our contract to like the very first billings on that. So it just took some time for some of the subs to go back into their databases and get the backup supporting
So all of the work associated that was funded out of that, we've been done for
months.
Yeah.
Months.
Okay, actually, it's almost over a year.
Correct.
And what this is for federal highways to do their final audit that allows us to close this off, and that's the final payment.
Correct.
Now, for us, that $405,000, we've paid it,
Correct.
but we funded it out of
Goes out of your reserves.
our reserves.
Yeah.
Which is not right.
Yeah.
So my point here is, okay, we are where we are on this one. And this is 400,000. Can you imagine what's gonna happen when we're running $15 million in invoice?
Yep.
If Federal Highways does that to us, then this project gets shut down.
So I think what's interesting here is that all of the ones that are lagging 60 days plus are all from one entity. Yes. That's kind of demonstrating a pattern.
Yeah, and we've been working with them on it. They, some of it was they had staffing changes and loss of staffing. So they've had to go back and redo work that was done by a different staff member to have current staff members be able to do it. But you can see between the federal process and the state process, there is a significant difference.
Yeah.
And
I guess
most of
what
it-
are we putting to get to Fox's point? What are we putting in terms of policies and procedures in place with our granting agency so that this cannot happen again? This is a huge risk to the agency, to us. What have we been able to do over the last 417 days to ensure this doesn't happen?
So
With an answer on that, Mike.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So specifically for the billing rate issue that we were talking about and having to go back, since that was highlighted and brought to our attention, we've put in policies and procedures with our HNTB and QIT staff, as well as the sub-consultants, to make sure that we have all of the required information, whether it's certified payroll, billing rates, ICRs as they come through annually. We are tracking all of that on an annual basis, and any adjustments, we have databases that we're tracking all of those things for the project moving forward. So for those issues, there wouldn't be a need to go back and ask for that information because now we're requiring it from our subs and from HNTB and QIT from henceforward.
Were we not requiring the certified payroll? Was HNTB not requiring that of our of Kiewit and the others?
We were requiring it, Jake. We were not sending it to FHWA, and we weren't in the early years. They were not FHWA was not asking for it in the first reviews. So the first 2 years of this review went through a different reviewer, and when they left and we got a new reviewer, they asked for more information than what the previous reviewer asked for.
So again, though, if we were asking for the certified payrolls, you should already have that.
Can I jump in here just a second? It isn't just certified payroll. They wanted to know how the billing rates that we were being charged. They wanted to know how we determined those billing rates. So it wasn't just the certified payroll, it was actually how were the billing rates determined. And I've literally never in all my years had a grantor go back in time and say, how are these determined? They typically want to know that up front. And so this was a lot of going back and digging up a lot of old information. I will say, though, that we have provided them exactly what they wanted within a day or two of them requesting it, and then they just keep coming back with more requests. So it's been very frustrating on both parts to get this, because we would like to get this closed out.
Yeah, the other thing that we put in place was a database that FHWA can actually use where we're populating the information so that they can just go in and enter it and do kind of a lookup function that makes it quicker on their end to validate the information as well.
But do we have any agreements or anything in place? Because we said the issue here is there was a change in staff. Well, if there's a change in staff once we start construction, do we have an agreement in place or anything with H&T or with with the agency that says this is what we will expect. So we don't have this, because if we have a $15 million one that gets held up for 100 days, as our goose is cooked.
Yeah, I would say our updated policies were developed to outline exactly what FHWA is currently asking for. Now, if they change what they're asking for, I can't predict what the next person's going to ask for, but we've got our policies aligned with what they are asking for now.
Now, if we're successful in getting pay on invoice,
Yes,
that'll certainly help this until you do the last invoice.
yes.
And then it could sit around for a
So,
long time.
and just for everybody's edification, I believe, the way I understand it, that this $400,000 is closing out that grant. So they've gone back to invoices that have been approved and paid and asking for support information on that.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so then let's go to the raise. What's the issue with the raise?
This grant, we just started submitting QIT invoices for the first time with raise 11. And so we had some adjustments to both the progress reports and the reporting. And so we've communicated that to QIT, and they are adjusting the way they report on the raise grant to align with what FHW wants to see.
And part of that was an education process is probably the wrong word to use, but they had not recognized the difference in contracting between the H&TB contract, which was time and material and profit, versus the way we procured the progressive design build, which was a multiplier, which included overhead and profit all in one number. And we had to go back and explain that difference. So there was some back and forth there early on with some of the raise grant. And then some differences in the progress reports and the wording and how the progress reports were, the detail that was in there in the progress reports.
I think it's awesome that federal folk haven't been able to spend the amount of time they need to spend on this project. They're competing.
Absolutely. I mean, they are drastically understaffed. I mean, I can't, yes, there are things they could do more efficiently and better, but they are dramatically understaffed. I mean, they lost, was it 60 or 70% of their staff? So, you went from an agency of 15 people to 5 people with the same workload, right? So, I mean, they are, trying to do that. We're trying to work with them. That's one of the reasons we did this lookup function, to make their jobs more efficient. We're trying to develop policies to make them as efficient as possible, but it's getting better. But when you're understaffed like that, it makes it difficult when they're trying to handle multiple projects. So hopefully when we get to construction, we will get dedicated staff that can help to keep the project on the timeframes it needs to be. I mean, they have prompt payment rules that they're trying to meet as well. So, nobody wants to be in violation of that. So
I think a topic for future discussion as we get closer to construction is how can we set up an organization with Federal Highways that can elevate these issues very quickly and get them resolved, not let them go 400 days.
Catherine?
So I just want to make sure I'm clear on understanding. Don't really have a fix to the problem of the build grant. Is that correct? We don't know exactly what they want. There's no policy that says FHWA says we need A, B, and C before we approve this invoice.
That's true. There's no black and white piece of paper that says, here's the checklist that you need to supply. I think we have gotten them everything that they've asked for on the build grant, according to their last ask. So I think we've checked that box now. But when they do their final review over the next few weeks, we'll find out.
But back to Mike Fox's initial question. we can't then say staff can't agree that we know exactly what they're going to want when we're having huge invoices. So they could say, go get me a rock, and you don't know which kind, it's too big, it's too small, it's a pedal. So again, back to, Commissioner Fox and then Commissioner Anderson's, I urge us to you need these two things, these three things when you do submittals to get paid on time, because otherwise we're never going to get a pay on invoice. If we think we're going to get pay on invoice, that's just it's a fight. We can't even get paid on when we believe we should be getting paid. We're over a year. So it's just an interesting consideration.
And I believe we're there with the current FHWA staff. If it changes tomorrow, I cannot influence what the next person's going to ask for. As we said, these invoices were previously approved and paid by FHWA. When they had a staffing change, they decided they needed additional or different information.
Which goes back to there needs to be an agreement in writing with FHWA about this is what you have to supply for everyone. Because it seems like we're having the same sort of an issue in a different grade on the raise style now. Because I was originally under the impression that the reason that this was taking so long is because this is the final payment and this is the closeout. But when we're 130 days on the raise side, there's something's getting lost here.
Yep. And most of that was due to a new, and this, again, I'm just explaining the situation. It shouldn't be this way. But when we added the Kiewit stuff in, it was a different contract and it took them a while to get through that difference. When it was the HNTB only, they were getting raised turned around in under the 30 days.
So we've developed a set of procedures for all of our billings. Can we put that on that database for FHWA and say this is, change the title on it. This is your FHA payment criteria.
Yeah, we can. We're modifying it based on what we are being asked for the latest ask.
Okay.
So we can put that on them, share that with them and say, hey, this is our understanding.
I think that's probably a good idea and do it in writing.
Sean, was that your?
Yeah, so the final thing that I want to come back to, and we talked about briefly, is this Christmas wish list. So we currently have identified 2 tasks that are not in scope. They are the test pile program and the bridge monitoring threshold analysis report. Not asking a decision today, but in the near future, we will ask the board, hey, of these things that we think are going to add value, we'll have a little bit of a presentation to go with it. But which one do you want to check off the Christmas list? Or which one do we need to add to the contract, add in scope so we can move forward with it?
Or if the authority has some other things that you haven't thought of.
Right. Exactly.
And to be fair, we don't know what those are worth yet. We're working with Hewitt and others to try to understand that and give a little shape to what that's worth and what it might prevent us from spending in the future. So, which seems to be a little more challenging than just throwing a number at it. Thank you, Sean. That was good. So
I'm sorry, were there numbers associated with those 2 tasks and how did that add up to the amount available?
we don't know yet.
We don't have numbers yet.
Yeah. I didn't just blank and miss those. Okay.
No, we don't have.
You're still with us.
What?
You're still with us.
Well, in the near future, though, we're working on that. And that's when we'll send it to you and then that's the decision.
So there were a couple things that kind of led to trying to do this. One, I think in the ENC, we've been going through and developing this, and Grant and his group in finance have been doing it. And we felt that somehow sharing that with the broader group so kind of understand as we get to a point where we have to make some decisions on some additional scope to add in there that fit within our existing funding. bucket, that it would be good that people have context leading up to that. So that was the purpose of any feedback or ways that it could be better or are welcome.
The comment I just want to add, and I'm trying to make it's a political comment I'm trying to make in a non-political way. I've been involved in similar discussions in just about every group that I'm working with, where we demand accountability and then we have problems with the lack of efficiency in organizations and the amount of administrative overhead that there is in everything that we're doing. And so just as we all look at these things, recognize that legitimate or not, we demand high amounts of accountability, and that's going to result in high amounts of administrative overhead, and that's the reality of modern life. I'll say no more.
Nothing's free.
It's a true statement.
Well, I mean, we're dealing with the same thing with ODOT at the state level. We're dealing with ODOT has too much overhead. Well, we keep on writing new bills that require them to do new reports. Okay.
Thank you, Sean. I think we're done.
That was the last time, wasn't it?
I believe so. So, any upcoming events that we want to talk about? No? Any last comments?
I was just going to say, we're going to do this at the second meeting of the month for the near future, unless you all decide to do something different.
And
the
second board meeting of every month, we will have this same progress discussion.
And I think we went about 35 minutes there, and that felt pretty good.
It seems like this could be reduced to a pretty simple graphic if it's going to be done once a month.
I think it will get much more efficient.
You got your thumbs up and thumbs down, and just some.
I would hope it gets much more efficient.
Linear. Well, we have to all learn what he's talking about.
Yeah.
I get it, but I could just imagine if I walked into this room and I saw three different lines, I would have the answers to everything I need to know.
I think if this thing really works, we're not going to spend a lot of time on the numbers and the definition of the number. It's going to be, what are we going to do about this?
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the idea. There's a little context. So when you're decide what to do, you know what's behind that decision. So, okay. This was the first go. I thought it was good. And we should try it for a couple months. And if we need to change it, let's do that. Okay. So, next meeting, August 10th, 2 to 4 here, same place. Thank you, everyone. Thank you online.
Thank you.